What is genomics? My name is Florence Cornish, and today I'm joined by Ella Davyson, who is a Genomics Data Scientist here at Genomics England, and she is here to explain the topic in much more detail. So, Ella, we obviously both work at Genomics England. This podcast is called Genomics 101, so I guess it's fitting that we have an episode dedicated to explaining the term genomics. But before we get into that, I think it would be good if you could first explain what we mean by the term genome.
Thanks, Florence. The genome is essentially, you can think of it like a manual booklet or instructions that the body uses in how to grow, survive and function. And this is a manual that's in every single cell within our body, and it tells our cells exactly how to divide, how to survive. For example, the genome in the pancreas, in pancreatic cells, will tell those cells how to produce proteins such as insulin that we need to control our blood sugar. And also the genome within our eye cells will tell the cells how to generate photoreceptors to enable us to see. So the genome is essentially like the ultimate guide that our body uses to tell it how to create everything that we need to survive going forwards.
So then, what do we mean by the term genomics?
So genomics is essentially the study of the entire human genome. So we study its structure and also how it functions in terms of how is this instruction manual being read by the body and how does that result in healthy human beings that we see today.
So when we're talking about studying DNA, lots of our listeners might have heard the term genetics, which kind of also refers to the study of DNA and genes, so it might be a little bit confusing. So what's the difference between the two? What's the difference between genetics and genomics?
So genetics is specifically the study of genes in the genome, and genes are parts of the instruction manual that specifically tell the body to produce a certain thing. So in an insulin example, there is a INS gene, which is the gene in the genome or the instruction manual that specifically tells the cells to make insulin and to produce this product. There are many different genes in our genome, and genetics is the study of all of these. In contrast, genomics is the study of the entire instruction manual altogether. So that includes all of the genes in genetics and also everything else in the manual. So genetics is limited to the study of these parts of the manual that clearly encode certain proteins or products such as insulin. Genomics is the study of everything all at once, kind of everything under the bathroom sink. So yeah, the confusion I think can arise a lot because historically when we first started looking at DNA and researching genetics, we didn't have the technology to look at the whole genome all at once, and with older sequencing technologies would focus on particular genes that we knew were important for certain diseases. So in diabetes, for example, they would instead specifically look at the insulin gene and see how does this influence diabetes, rather than looking at the entire instruction manual at once. Nowadays, we do have that technology, and that is what we do here at Genomics England, is kind of use that to look at the entire genome rather than specific subsets of the genome. So specific genes, we can look at everything in its entirety. So you can kind of think of genomics as a much broader, more complete study of genetics.
So speaking of genomic testing, I don't know if you saw, but in the government's 10-year health plan that they published last year, they predicted that genomics could play a role in up to 50% of healthcare interactions. Could you tell me a bit about why genomics is important in healthcare?
So that's a really exciting point, and I think one that we should be all striving towards. So genomics can play a role in healthcare in so many different ways. I think before going into each of them, it's kind of maybe important just to illustrate that our genomes between two people are 99.9% the same. So we're both humans. We are both the same species. There is 0.1% difference between two people's genomes, and those differences underlie all the uniqueness that makes a person a unique individual. So personality, appearance, and also the risk to different health and disease outcomes. So that is where the role of genomics can come in, is to understand how the differences between people in their genetic makeup, if you like, can influence maybe their risk for being more predisposed to developing a condition. So conditions such as cystic fibrosis or Huntington's disease that are specifically caused by genetic variants or mutations in genes that directly cause the condition. Or so it's kind of a bit more maybe obvious, if you like, about how studying genetics in those conditions can directly inform on, you know, how they arise, potential ways that we can better treat them. So another way that genomics can be used in healthcare is through screening. So this is being piloted at the moment in the Generation study by Genomics England, which is applying whole genome sequencing to newborn babies to look for a range of conditions which are caused by genetic changes, all of which are treatable. But importantly, screening will enable clinicians and families to know about these conditions much earlier and start kind of life-changing treatment much, much sooner. So this is kind of already beginning to be, I think it will be showcased with this study in the next couple of years. And the power of this in healthcare, I think, can't really be overestimated.
And finally, just to finish off, is there anything coming up in the field of genomics that you're especially excited about?
There are loads of different things that I'm excited about in the field of genomics. I think probably maybe one that's most kind of relevant to clinical care is the possibility of doing more personalized medicine with treatments. So often at the moment, we majority have kind of one treatment for all when treating certain conditions. And sometimes these treatments aren't tolerated well by some people. And also some of these treatments just don't work well in some people as well. And it's sometimes there's a clear reason for these things, but quite more often than not, it's not entirely clear why some people might benefit more for some treatments, or some people don't respond or don't react well to some treatments as well. And understanding more, so there's a whole field about how genomics interacts with drugs and medicines, which is called pharmacogenomics. And its kind of aim is to understand which medicine might be most effective or well tolerated in certain people based on their genetics. And I think that will be kind of life-changing as well for some people who are suffering from diseases where the medication is either not effective enough or is also affecting their quality of life. Because that is a whole other part of it as well, is that sometimes these like treatments for certain conditions are really hard to tolerate. Other things that I'm excited about are just the technologies that are coming out at the moment mean that we can measure and understand a whole lot more about genomics than we used to be. So kind of now we can say this gene is influencing this disease, but sometimes, you know, it's more complicated, and we now have the technology to measure all sorts of different things. So how our environment can influence our genes, and how our genes react with each other. So we're getting able to look at more and more, and I think we'll expand our understanding in a lot of conditions that unfortunately aren't very simple.
Well, I think we'll finish there. Thank you so much, Ella, for coming on and for taking the time to explain genomics to us.
Thank you, Florence. Thanks so much for inviting me, and it was a pleasure to be on the podcast today.
If you want to hear more Explainer episodes like this, you can find them on our website at www.genomicsengland.co.uk or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening.